Hey, what's up guys? It's Enigma Hood. And today I want to do kind of like a mini review of a movie, a little mini history lesson, and kind of a mini editorial. So if you can kind of wrap your head around all of those things at once, you kind of can get an idea of what this video is about. So what precipitated all of this was a movie called Acceptable Risks. And I saw this movie way back in the day in the 90s, and I only remembered bits and pieces of it, and recently I wanted to watch it again because it always kind of lingered in my mind that, yeah, I remember that movie from back in the day, and I remember liking it. I also remember being terrified by it, so I had this morbid curiosity about it, so I rediscovered it and I watched it again for the first time, and it's a really good movie. And the reason why it's so terrifying is because it's about a chemical plant that leaks toxic gas into the atmosphere that kills countless people in the area surrounding it. And the reason why that's so terrifying is because this is something that can happen in your own backyard, literally. Like if you live near a chemical plant or something like that, it can happen to you. It's not like so far-fetched like zombies or something like that. It's not so far-fetched like just some random psychopath going around killing people. Those things they're not within the realm of believability, but this actually is. And at the time, even as a young child, I didn't believe that something like that was possible. And even persisting into my adulthood, I never thought that something like that would be possible, where there's a toxic gas leak that kills hundreds of people. Like, there's no way, because I always assumed that any kind of toxic gas leak, like hydrogen sulfide, would have localized effects. It would be dangerous to the people in the immediate vicinity, but it would become way too dispersed once it's released into the atmosphere and wouldn't pose a danger to anyone in the surrounding community. Turns out I was wrong. I was completely wrong. This movie, Acceptable Risks, is inspired by true events. So just a quick summary of the movie, what the movie's about. This movie is about a chemical plant that manufactures lots of different kinds of toxic chemicals in the production of mostly pesticides. And they're under the gun to produce more and more pesticides because, the corporate bigwigs want to shut down the plant. And because they're rushing, they're making lots of careless mistakes, and those careless mistakes lead to an explosion at the plant, which releases toxic gas that kills hundreds of people in the neighborhood around the plant. And like I said, I didn't think that was possible. It didn't sound plausible to me. Into adulthood, when you learn about chemical warfare, we always learn that it was primarily used during World War I, and it was mostly ineffective. So, just like my natural instincts told me that something like this couldn't be that effective at killing hundreds of people. No. It turns out it is absolutely true. Not only is it true, it's inspired by events that happen in real life, and those events that happened in real life were actually even worse than what happened in the movie. So this goes back to 1984. The movie was made in 1986. And in 1984, we had the Bhopal disaster. And this took place in Bhopal, a pesticide plant in Bhopal. And that's located in India. And this was a company called Union Carbide India Limited, UCIL. And they were manufacturing this pesticide called carbaryl. And in order to make that pesticide, they had to use an intermediary chemical called methyl isocyanate, MIC. The irony is that this intermediary chemical, methyl isocyanate, is a lot more hazardous and toxic than the final pesticide that they make, carbaryl. Now, it's possible to make carbaryl using a different production method that's a lot safer. However, using methyl isocyanate is a lot cheaper. And, you know, this is apparently owned by some American company, or there's some American bigwigs that are at the head of this company. One of those guys, his name is Warren Anderson. So it seems likely that they offshored production to countries that don't have as much regulation, safety regulations, because those are very expensive. So they offshored this production to India, so they could produce the stuff cheaper using much more dangerous methods. And basically, what happened was there was horrible maintenance of the plant. All the valves and lines were in poor condition. Many safety systems were not functioning. And what happened was they were collecting too much of this dangerous chemical, methyl isocyanate, in this tank. It was called Tank 610. I'm going to put a picture of that right there. That is, this rusted hulk is the cause of the deaths of thousands of people. Spoiler alert, it caused the death of thousands of people. So what happened was they were collecting a lot of this chemical in this tank, and apparently the demand for pesticides had fallen, but production continued, and eventually a runaway reaction started because there was water seeping into the tank, and apparently the chemical reacts very violently with water, and pressure increased, and this forced emergency venting of pressure from that tank, and that released a large volume of toxic gases. About 30 metric tons of methyl isocyanate escaped from the tank within 45 to 60 minutes. And then this toxic gas cloud went on to kill 3,000 people initially. And it is believed that when it all said and done, 16,000 people died as a result of this horrible catastrophe of venting of toxic gas into the atmosphere. So, like I said, I never believed that anything like this could be possible from the production. And at the end of the day, what was this all for? It was for the production of pesticides, of a fucking Home Depot shit. Fucking Home Depot shit. And, you know, that enrages me. You know, like, because, not just because of what happened, but because of how anal we are about safer alternatives. But before I get into that, I just want to point out that Warren Anderson was UCC's CEO at the time of the disaster. And long story short, he escaped prosecution. A lot of the other Indian bigwigs were prosecuted and convicted. But this motherfucker, he escaped conviction. He fled to America, and India indicted him and said, you need to hand him over to us. And America refused to do it because they cited a lack of evidence, which, by the way, was the same fucking excuse that Afghanistan used when they refused to extradite Osama bin Laden. America refused to extradite this rich CEO, Warren Anderson, because of a lack of evidence, the same exact excuse that the Taliban used. And this guy, he lived his entire life free from conviction, and he died last year in a nursing home. So that just kind of goes to show you how insidious corporate America can be, that it protects the rich. This is just another example of the corporate system protecting rich individuals and giving them special privilege over ordinary people. You know, who had to suffer because of this? Mostly ignorant peasants, you know. They wanted to save money, and they used India. You know, at the time, this was 1984, you know, it's not as developed as it is now, and much less regulation than it does now. And they used it to cut costs. They were definitely responsible for it. You know, they didn't have to produce this fucking pesticide using this intermediary chemical. They could have done it using safer methods, but they wanted to save money. So that's what they did. And Warren Anderson got away with the murder of 16,000 people as a result. And that leads me to my final point about GMOs. Now, GMOs have always been getting a bad rap because just the name GMO strikes fear into people. For those who don't know, GMO stands for genetically modified organism. And whenever you use the word genetically modified, that makes people so afraid. It terrifies people. Irrationally. Because they think genetically modified means dangerous. Now, I'll tell you what is dangerous. Killing 16,000 people with a toxic gas cloud is dangerous. Now, I'm in favor for GMOs because we can create genetically modified food safely. And we can create genetically modified plants that naturally secrete pesticides to protect themselves. They naturally do it. So we don't have to introduce pesticides, external pesticides, to kill insects and other pests. We can do it through natural secretions from genetically modified organisms, which is cheaper and safer. It's safer because then we don't have to manufacture these fucking pesticides at these chemical plants that can kill thousands of people. You know, that's what annoys me so much, that people, they miss the mountain for the molehill. They think that GMOs are dangerous, which is false. But they completely ignore the alternative. The alternative is to use these dangerous chemicals, which are produced dangerously. From these chemical plants, we could have completely obviated our need for these intermediary chemicals by not producing pesticides at all. We can just completely expunge our reliance on pesticides by growing crops that are naturally resistant through genetic modification. And that's why I'm a huge supporter of GMOs. We already consume genetically modified organisms. Most of the food we have that we consume, that you buy at the supermarket, is genetically modified. People don't realize that because it's not labeled. Because if they labeled it, people wouldn't buy it. Because people are irrational. And that's why I made this video. Because I want to help educate and inform people about what is the real danger. Okay, what's more dangerous? You know, it's impossible to completely eliminate risk. I understand that. And I'm not saying we should get rid of chemical plants altogether. No, we do need chemicals. You know, you look in your house, you have plenty of chemicals in your home. Okay, we need chemicals. However, there are certain chemicals that we don't need to produce. Okay, and we sure as shit don't need to produce methyl isocyanate as a intermediary chemical to produce pesticides that we don't need, because we can grow GMOs instead. So, you know, that's basically all I have to say. In addition to the movie I reviewed just now, Acceptable Risks, there has been another movie made called Bhopal, A Prayer for Rain, and this came out in 2014. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to, and it stars Martin Sheen as the villain Warren Anderson. So check out both of those movies. Check out Acceptable Risks. It's a little hard to find, but I think you can find it if you dig around on the internet enough. I'm going to post a link to its IMDb page in the description. And also check out Bhopal, A Prayer for Rain. Because this is an important event in history that everyone should learn about, but few people do. Thanks for watching. This is Enigma Hood signing off.